Senator Sullivan is, of course, from Alaska. He joins us. He's also a Marine. And, Senator, I want to talk to you about Ukraine. Good morning, by the way. How do you feel about our Browns?
Good morning, Hugh. Great to be back on the show. Look, Nick Chubb, probably in my view the best running back in the NFL, suffered that devastating knee injury, so that's just horrendous. Deshaun Watson is suffering the perennial problem with Browns quarterbacks, which is inconsistency, but underrated defense. Defense is looking strong. So
yeah, 2-2 at the break.
The Chubb thing is really horrible, man.
That's horrible because he was such a good guy. He's the epitome of a Cleveland Browns favorite kind of player. Senator Sullivan, I got Vivek coming up at the bottom of the hour. I try not to hold it against him that he's from Cincinnati. He's a Bengals fan, but I'm just warning you. You might get triggered if we talk Bengals football. Before we get to Ukraine, I want to read to you. I don't know if you get Ellis news items from John Ellis. This was in the newsletter this morning, a Substack. A great military purge is underway in China. The absence of key military figures at a dinner reception to celebrate the founding of modern China last week made that fact clear and left Beijing's political circles pondering what President Xi Jinping's intentions are. One of the most notable absentees, Li Shangfu, 65, the state counselor and minister of defense, goes on to explain how vital this is. You know, we're looking at chaos in the House, and meanwhile, China's getting ready for a war.
Look, I always talk about, I keep a very close eye on China. I'm still a colonel out at Marine Forces Pacific Command in the reserves, and the Marines out at Marfor Pac under Indo-PACOM. That's all they do is focus on China and the Taiwan Strait. And Hugh, it's part of the nature of this regime. It's not just the Minister of Defense. The foreign minister disappeared. That was, by the way, Xi Jinping's top protege. He's gone, right? Probably in a ditch somewhere with a bullet in his head. The commander of the missile defense unit is gone, disappeared. The deputy commander of the missile defense unit is gone, disappeared. Again, probably all dead, but it just shows you the nature of this regime, the brutality. But I've been asking a lot of questions of our intel agencies. What does this mean? Exactly to your point, there's a lot of chaos going on.
It's like the Wehrmacht before 39. Hitler just moving people around and dumping them, which brings me to Putin. No one has made, Tom Cotton comes on and you come on and you make compelling cases why it's in America's national interest to fund the Ukrainian defense of its own country. The president has not made that speech. I don't think he's capable of giving a speech, Senator Sullivan. You worked with him for a while. Why do we need the commander-in-chief to come out and spell it out? This is in our national interest.
I couldn't agree more. And look, you're right. I have been a proponent of military aid for Ukraine because it's part of the broader challenge, which includes China, this new era of authoritarian aggression. But here's the thing. It makes it tough to make these arguments when the Biden administration and the president keep undertaking policies that undermine this. It's the weapons delays, Hugh. The list is so long, it'll take me half an hour to read it, but it's F-16s, it's HIMARS, it's Javelins, it's Patriots, it's tanks. Every time there has been a weapon system that the Ukrainians need, this administration delays it for months. Then they get pressure from the Congress, especially the Senate, and they finally relent. This is part of a pattern. Of course, the weakness of the Biden administration in Afghanistan on the withdrawal, in my view, was the green light to Putin to do this. But we are where we are. And to your question, he is not given a speech. What he does, look at his statements on Ukraine. He rips part of the Republican Party. He goes into his MAGA extremism rift, and it's always about ripping people who don't support the policy, which they've screwed up a lot of the policy, as opposed to trying to bring Americans together. He's not given one address from the Oval Office or anywhere else on why this is in the strategic interest of our country. Think about the contrast with someone like Reagan, where he sat in the Oval Office and discussed these important issues with the American people. Biden seems incapable of doing it. I agree with you 100%.
I understand that half of the Republican base polls as anti-Ukraine. That's because they're pro-border security. We can do both. Biden doesn't want to do either, except reluctantly. I want to point out to you in the Financial Times today, the Russian government has said it aims to spend a staggering $108 billion on defense this year, 3 times the amount allocated in 2021, the last year before the invasion, and 70% more than was planned for this year. They are getting slaughtered. I mean, they are absolutely getting slaughtered in Ukraine, Dan Sullivan, and I do not know how anyone doesn't understand that to be in our national interest.
Well, and when you look at I agree, and when you look at the number of tanks, for example, 1/3 of their main battle tanks have been destroyed. The estimates of casualties of the Russian army, are upwards of up to 300,000, right? So these are the numbers. But here's the thing, Hugh, that I've been trying to make the case on. I couldn't agree more with you on border security. We have to do it. This is a complete dereliction of duty that the president has an open border. I've been down there. It's unbelievable. It's an open border. And this is because, like so many things in the Biden administration, the far left drives the policy. They want open borders. We had 260,000 illegals come into our country in September alone, the highest number of any month in the history of our country. So we have to shut down the border. But when it comes to Ukraine, I've been talking about we have to broaden the aperture because, there's a lot of Republicans who are growing skeptical. Part of that is the Biden administration's fault. But what unites Republicans is the topic you were talking about at the beginning, which is China. And I've been saying, quit calling this a Ukraine supplemental. Talk about this in terms of a supplemental to fight authoritarian aggression. That's the issue. And the issue of China and Taiwan in the Indo-PACOM challenges that we see with this aggressive communist dictatorship on the march, and I'm talking about Xi Jinping in China, is something that actually unites a lot of Republicans. It doesn't divide us, and I think we have to start talking about it in that way and ditch the phrase Ukraine supplemental and talk about the broader context of the authoritarian challenges that we're facing with China as the pacing threat for this century.
By pacing threat, that's Marine lingo for they're the ones that we're going to be likely to be at war with and lose if we do not keep up. Now, I want to tell you, because you're a Marine, Senator, I had dinner with a young Marine field officer on Tuesday night. Just wanted to get debriefed. The guy ran a platoon in Helmand, so he was out in cowboy and Indian land doing what they do. Right. And he was way out there. And I asked him about the controversy surrounding the Pentagon. And he will not, because he's a good Marine, criticize people above him. But he does say, I go to the DEI stuff. I don't mind it, but it's stuff I'm not doing with my troops. And I do not mind doing anything, but we still have to train. We still have to prepare. We are just not focused as a military. Is the Biden DOD salvageable?
Well, look, this is the reason that Senate oversight is so important. We've been going through our confirmation hearings of the new members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And trust me, in these hearings and the meetings that we have prior to the hearings on the Armed Services Committee, I grill down with these generals and admirals on these topics. And here's what I always say. You got one job. It's lethality, deterrence, and winning wars if called upon. That's it. That's your job. That's everything. All the other stuff, extraneous stuff, is BS. Let me give you one small example. We had the Chief of Naval Operations for her confirmation hearing. And in my meeting, I walked her through the reading list for the Navy. The CNO puts out a reading list, like the Commandant of the Marine Corps puts out a reading list for Marines. In the Marine Corps, you got to read the Commandant's reading list, period. There was so much crap in the CNO's reading list currently dealing with racial politics, sexual politics. I won't even go through half the books. And I looked at her, I said, Admiral, where the hell did this crap come from? You need to focus on lethality, winning wars, the great heritage and history of the Navy, and battles. And that's it. Get rid of this other crap, right? If a sailor wants to read this crap on his free time, go ahead. But the CNO should not be telling the U.S. sailor, here, read How to Be an Anti-Racist, whatever that crap is.
Give them the Nimitz biography and tell them this is what happens when you're unprepared for war.
Well, because I give him my favorite book. I give him my favorite book, and I would love all your readers to read it. It's called This Kind of War.
Oh, I just read it. Gallagher made me read it.
Well, I'm the one who told young Gallagher, the young Marine, to read it himself.
It is fabulous.
I give it to every leader in the Pentagon, and I say, read this, right? Because this is what happens when America is not prepared. Thousands of young men and women die because of the lack of leadership from senior military officers. We can't let Task Force Smith happen again.
And do not talk to the president candidly. MacArthur and the president meet on Wake Island. There are already 150,000 Chi-Coms over the Yalu, and nobody knows. Dan Sullivan, This Kind of War, gets another recommendation from the senior Marine in the area. That's Dan Sullivan. Thank you, Senator. Go Browns.